So in this video we're going to look at more of the files inside of the generated dev folder. So the first folder we'll look at is the components. So what the SvelteKit in a default configuration, it generates an error.svelte file to show the user's errors without having to go to the console. And it has this layout file which is the same as this layout except that it removes the style. So in the original one it has a link to the styles like that. And then it's this generated folder and it has this thing called manifest, which looks at the routes and then basically puts them into an array. So basically it imports all of the routes, imports your layout, and what it does is it exports the layout and it also exports an array of routes which are basically mapped into components. And then there's have this sort of root svelte file, which is like an automatically generated app.svelte, which you would have probably seen before, except it has more of the logic for SvelteKit. I haven't looked very deep at this, but basically what it is it imports this error component. It imports the current layout, which is the components 0, which I believe is the current route, whatever route has been activated. And then there's this thing called set context, which is, what's that? Something internal to Svelte. And then we set this current store, and we have this thing called onMount lifecycle function here, which is doing work with the stores, which we'll figure out as we go along. So basically, if there's an error shown, the error component is shown, or we show the current route. And then there's something in here called mounted, and then some other div here. So anyway, so we'll kind of like dig around to that as it comes along. And then in this runtime folder we have more things. So we have some utility functions for something called paths, something called env here, and then there's an app file which has more. Basically, I believe there's different modes for SPA mode and server-side routing. So what happens is that in this navigation file here, we basically use SPA type things versus server-side rendering type things. Okay, so these are basically the I think the SPA mode stuff. Sorry if I'm flying through this, but I think the best way to learn about how this stuff works is just run the code in the browser. And this is a sort of index here. And then the stores file, which is doing what exactly? So I think it's just to do with the different modes that SvelteKit can run in. I'm not going to look too deeply at what it is. We will figure that as we go along. And so there's this thing called chunks. What's that? Get base URI. There's not any documentation generated with this, so there's probably somewhere else, like within the actual SvelteKit source files, which we might get to at some point. And then within internal, there's a thing called singletons. So I guess just sort of closures like assets-based router. And then it's the start function here, which start file, which is the biggest, by far the biggest file, and we've put a few breakpoints in there within that file. So if I just go like in here, you can see that I'm putting a breakpoint in this thing called find anchor, in this init function here. Let's just put one here as well. Got one here for add event listener. Let's just put one here as well. Put one in here. Go to prefetch, let's put one in there as well. I'm not sure what exactly this is, if there's any node code running here at this time. Come on, screen recorder. Whew, a lot of new code all at once, alright? It's always difficult checking it out for the first time. But I'm not trying to make things easy, I'm just trying to make them as easy for myself and you watching it and useful. This sort of stuff, of course, looking at cutting edge frameworks is never going to be easy to understand what's going on, even within the first few hours of looking at it. Okay. Let's put another one in there. Now, I always say if I rebuild it, then I think all these files get overwritten and I lose all these breakpoints. Probably putting too many breakpoints in here, to be honest. I could probably just step into things, but don't want to miss anything too easily here. So we're halfway doing that down through this massive file. Let's just stick one in there as well. Okay, so that's enough going through that file. Let's just go back into actually debugging the page because it's more interesting that way. Okay, so when we start the code, remember we start with this index file here, and it goes into this start method, and at this point all the modules are loaded, just due to the type module, and we're passing in all these variables here. So we're going to step into this, and start brings us to creating this router, which creates a new router class, new renderer, and then some other functions. So we'll just step into the router constructor here. Okay, so we take in this object deconstruction. So base is going to be this thing here, and then routes is contains our index route. That's what that is. And the renderer code basically passes in this root class, our layout, which we import from, remember layout is an import from here. If you actually track where layout is imported at the top of this file, that's what it's referring to. Target is this body. Session, that's an empty object, and host is just that. We're just creating some properties here, nothing too fancy, we'll use them later on. Stores, this basically creates 3 stores which we use later on. Just initializes them, that's all it is. Page store, what's that again? So page store is a wrapper around a writable, which returns just some utility functions here. I'm not going to bother running through that. Session property, root property, this ready thing. So what's going on here is that sometimes when you subscribe to things, you want it to run first, and then this ready thing, you want to set it so that it doesn't run this initial logic the first time. So basically it'll exit here. And when it runs again on update, it's going to just run this code here and parse any new URLs. Okay, well anyway, we'll put a debugger in actually there so that we hit that when it comes up again. So let me just find this. Whoops. That's when you're trying to type with one hand, that's what happens, because I'm holding the mic with my other hand. So I'm just going to delete this debugger statement, and we're going to put in a new debugger there. And we're just going to step out of this internal svelte function where we're at. Okay, so we've run this code here, and then I'm just going to click continue. Okay, so now we go to this init function, which takes in our router here. So has a strange way to name a variable underscore, but you know, Svelte knows best, as they say. So that's a closure for router. Set paths. So what's paths taking? It's taking in this thing. It's just another closure. So if hide rate. So at the moment hide rate is an object which contains pending promise and a page. Okay, so let's just step into this function, see what's going on. So 𝙖𝙙𝙬𝙧 takes the current page. Okay, and then it sets this load selected page. Let's just step into what that is doing. So load takes in status 200 null error nodes. So, and this page like that. Okay. Hopefully you're following along. If you've made it to this point, then congratulations. You're obviously very hardcore fans of Svelte. So this query here is utility function result contains this props and this state. And as I mean, this is the first time I'm looking at this, so if it's a bit fast, you know, or a bit confusing, then I understand. They've got this sort of complicated thing to see if something's changed, which will probably be used later on down this page. Where is it used? Here. Oh, this function is a pretty large one, this load thing. Okay, so you know what? Let's just pause this video and we'll get back to it because it's getting already quite long, and we'll make a part 3. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.